So Henry, my son, he is 6 months or 6.5 months old. He's very happy, very healthy, very noisy and bubbly. I chose hypnobirthing purely, I had originally read about it in an article in a magazine. I remember thinking at the time, that sounds really great. I'm going to research that when the time comes. It really sort of jumped out at me that I could have a way of doing it that would potentially be drug-free and intervention-free, and it sounded completely what I would want to do. So it was stuck in my brain, and then when I found out I was pregnant with Henry, the first thing I did was start to research a bit more about hypnobirthing. And the more I read, the more I was completely convinced that that's the way I wanted to have Henry. Before the course, I was very excited because as I said, I'd done more research than my husband had, and I was quite keen to sort of get going. And I'd say William was first and foremost skeptical. I think the name perhaps may have put him off to start with, because I think hypnobirthing, he immediately thought, hypnotherapy, what's that? That sounds rather strange. That's not up my street. And it took me a while to sort of, one, convince him to come with me, and two, to really sort of, I really thought he wouldn't open up and he wouldn't sort of want to learn about it. And lo and behold, after the first session, I think he was more on board than I was. And I think more than anything, it was the fact that he completely realised it was fact-based, and it wasn't just this airy-fairy idea. It was completely logical. In terms of the build up to the birth, I think the anticipation was probably more scary than the actual thing for him personally. So having the knowledge and thinking, okay, well, I know what this is, I know what this stage is, I know what to expect, was really helpful from him. Personally, for me, I loved the environment. It was very relaxing, and when you're pregnant, it was quite nice to sort of switch off and have an evening where I did thoroughly relax, and knowing that I was also benefiting baby and my future birth. So it was, brilliant during it. And I think building on the knowledge that I'd already quickly researched beforehand, and the more I did, the more I realised this is great, and the more I wanted to do, and the more I wanted to read, and the more I wanted to learn. And it was sort of a snowball effect to the point where I felt really, really prepared for the birth. Henry was actually 2 weeks late when I went into labour, and I had a tiny bit of a tough time trying to convince the midwives that actually really what I wanted to do was to not medically be induced. I wanted to just see it out. And I was very grateful. They were very helpful at letting me do that. And I sort of waited and potted around the garden, did a few things trying to induce my labour really naturally. Bounced up and down on the quad bike a few times, nothing really. I tried being active, I tried being inactive, I tried lots of things. I tried being really relaxed, and essentially he decided in his own time, right, I'm ready to come now. And I just had a feeling, I just knew it was going to happen. And I went to bed knowing I was going to be in labour. And I can't tell you why, because I had no physical symptoms. I just thought, right, it's going to happen tonight. And I'd had none of the precursor symptoms that they'd said. So I hadn't had a show, I hadn't had my waters break, I'd had nothing. And then bang, all of a sudden at midnight, I woke up and was like, oh, I think that might be a surge I'm feeling. So I sort of got out of bed, and the first thing I wanted to do was have a bath, because I knew that's not only was in my birth plan, but I knew that's what I wanted to do, because bathing, I found it very relaxing to have a bath, and it was warm. And I think I just wallowed in the water for probably 6 hours and probably kept filling it up. And I got out a few times, but actually for me, laying down, I didn't want to be laying down. I bounced on my ball for a little while, which actually was really comfortable. And I think we watched quite a lot of Netflix whilst I was bouncing on that ball. And I think the dog was more stressed out than I was, because the dog was running around knowing something was up. But I mean, I was very much in the zone. And I think what really amazed me was how I didn't have to try to remember the hypnobirthing. And that's what I was so worried about. I remember thinking, how am I going to know? I'm going to have to remember everything. I'm going to do this, blah, blah, blah. And it just happened. I just knew what to do. So I ended up driving in to hospital at 10 o'clock in the morning. Had a great chat with the receptionist, was shown to my room, and again I made a beeline for the bath, because it has a lovely pool in there, so I got myself straight in the bath. That's when I think I completely switched off. That's when time went for me. I was quite sort of conscious of the time when I was at home, but when I went into hospital, it felt like I was there for 30 seconds. I completely lost all track of time. In my zone, I was quite happy. I felt really in control. So Henry was born in the pool, and my waters didn't break until 2 pushes before he came out. So he was almost born in his little sack. He was quite happy, quite content. And he was born into the water, came straight up onto me, and then he also had time on William. And no, it was it's quite sad, but I quite often reminisce about my labour, because I genuinely enjoyed it from start to finish. It really was. And I feel so grateful that I sort of had the tools there to get the birth that I really wanted. So I remained calm. I didn't feel the need to even think or ask for pain relief, because I was so under under control, and I felt I was coping. And yes, that's Henry saying that. Do you have a great time as well, darling? Yes. But no, it was great. It was magical. I'd say the last 6 or 7 months, I'd say hypnobirthing has definitely come into play. So it's not just for labour. I mean, breastfeeding for one. Personally, I found breastfeeding quite challenging, but having those tools to stay calm and stay relaxed and sort of almost take yourself away from the situation, I found incredibly useful for breastfeeding. And also when your child is crying and you've had no sleep and you feel really quite irate because you really want to go to bed, but actually I just reverted to my breathing, and I was like, I'm going to do my calm breathing, and it's so helpful. And more than one thing, it's really, really helpful. And in terms of advice, I'd say don't worry too much about how much time you spend in hospital, how much time you spend at home. Because I was conscious I didn't want to spend too much time in hospital personally. So I thought, how am I going to know that I'm not going in too soon? And and it's funny, I think your body just has this great skill at I just felt it. And nothing. Henry, are you saying you told me, did you? You told mummy to go into hospital? No, I think your body just tells you, and I just felt right now is the right time I need to go in. And actually when I went in, I was 8 centimetres dilated. And so I'd as I wanted, I'd done the majority of the legwork at home, and it was just the last little bit I did in the hospital, which for me is what I wanted. But again, I think next time I won't worry as much thinking, how am I going to know? Is it going to be right? Because you're in your own space. And you create your own space. That's how you want to be. So actually, if there hadn't been a lovely room with, I don't know, nice wallpaper and soothing music, it wouldn't have actually mattered, because you've got the tools in place, you've got your tracks, you've got everything you need to create your own space, regardless of where you are. So that's probably my other thing I'd say don't panic about.